Officer Greg Larson had made plenty of arrests in his career, but this one felt especially satisfying. A trespasser outside the police headquarters, refusing to back down? Yeah, Larson was going to teach him a lesson. But as he shoved the man into the precinct, smugly parading his suspect in front of his fellow officers, the room went eerily silent. Then the captain's voice thundered, "Uncuff him now!" What Larson learned in the next few seconds made his stomach drop, his hands shake, and his career flash before his eyes. But what happened next? No one saw coming. Let's start from the beginning. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the city as Officer Greg Larson, a seasoned cop with a decade on the force, leaned against his squad car, sipping on his lukewarm coffee. The precinct had been cracking down on trespassers lately, especially around high-profile buildings, and Larson wasn't about to let another loiterer disrupt his patrol. His eyes locked onto a tall black man in a tailored navy suit, standing confidently near the front steps of the police headquarters. Something about the man rubbed Larson the wrong way. He wasn't running. He wasn't sneaking around. He stood too confidently, too assured, too in control, and that made Larson uneasy. "Hey!" Larson barked, tossing his coffee onto the sidewalk. "This is a restricted area. What are you doing here?" The man, Malcolm Hayes, turned, arching a brow as if unimpressed. A deep, powerful presence surrounded him, an air of calm authority that only fueled Larson's growing irritation. "I'm here for a meeting," Malcolm said smoothly. "Yeah? With who?" Larson sneered, stepping closer. Malcolm reached into his pocket to pull out a leather-bound folder, but Larson had already drawn his taser. "Hands where I can see them!" Larson shouted, his voice sharp. A small crowd had started gathering across the street. People pulled out their phones, whispering among themselves. The weight of the moment thickened, and Malcolm slowly raised his hands, his expression shifting from mild disbelief to disappointment. "You're making a mistake," Malcolm warned. Larson smirked. "That's funny. People like you always say that." Then, without warning, Larson grabbed Malcolm's wrist, yanking it behind his back. The cold steel of handcuffs snapped into place. "You're under arrest for trespassing," Larson declared, tightening the cuffs harder than necessary. A few gasps rippled through the bystanders. One woman spoke up. "Officer, are you sure? He doesn't look like a trespasser." "You got a problem?" Larson snapped at her, his hand resting on his holster. The woman flinched and stepped back. Malcolm, though, remained composed. No struggle, no raised voice, just a deep, burning intensity in his gaze. As Larson shoved him into the back seat of the squad car, Malcolm let out a slow breath. "You really don't know who I am, do you?" Larson scoffed. "Yeah, I do. You're just another guy who doesn't know how to follow the rules." But what happened next would make Larson regret every single word. At the precinct, Larson paraded Malcolm through the hallway, smirking at his fellow officers. "Picked up a trespasser outside HQ," Larson announced. "Figured I'd do my civic duty." Some officers chuckled, but a few exchanged nervous glances. Something wasn't right. One rookie cop, Officer Daniels, peeked at Malcolm, his face turning pale. He swallowed hard before whispering, Larson? Are you sure about this?" "Yeah," Larson snorted. "Why? You want to let another criminal run loose?" Daniels hesitated, staring at Malcolm like he had seen a ghost. Then, the captain's door swung open. Captain Reynolds, a gruff, middle-aged officer with salt and pepper hair, stepped out, and his face drained of all color the moment he saw Malcolm in cuffs. "What the hell is going on here?" Reynolds roared, his voice sending a chill through the room. "Just handling business, sir," Larson said, still smug. "Trespassing suspect." Reynolds' jaw clenched. The air in the room shifted. A suffocating tension filled the space. "Uncuff him. Now!" Larson blinked. "What?" "Uncuff him, Larson!" Reynolds bellowed. Reluctantly, Larson fumbled for the key, unlocking the cuffs. Malcolm rolled his shoulders, rubbing his wrists, his eyes never leaving Larson. The room had fallen dead silent, and then the moment of reckoning came. "Everyone," Captain Reynolds announced, his voice firm. "Meet Malcolm Hayes, your new police commissioner." Silence. Absolute, deafening silence. Larson felt like the ground had vanished beneath his feet. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. A trembling Officer Daniels was the first to react, snapping into a stiff salute. Then, one by one, every officer in the room followed. Malcolm simply straightened his tie, his gaze still locked onto Larson. "You might want to rethink how you handle situations like this," Malcolm said, his voice calm but razor-sharp. Larson stammered. "Sir, I didn't know." "You didn't ask," Malcolm interrupted, stepping closer. "You assumed, and in your assumption, you humiliated yourself, your department, and everyone in this room." The humiliation sank into Larson's skin like a poison. Captain Reynolds looked like he wanted to strangle him right then and there. "Hayes," Reynolds said, his voice tight, "do whatever you see fit." For the first time, Larson felt real fear. Malcolm took a deep breath, pacing slowly, as every eye in the room burned into Larson's skin. "Officer Larson," Malcolm said evenly, "tell me something. How long have you been on the force?" Larson swallowed. 10 years. "And in those 10 years," Malcolm continued, "how many times have you made arrests like this? Without cause, without facts, just off assumption?" Larson didn't answer. Malcolm leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "How many times have you gotten away with it?" Beads of sweat formed on Larson's forehead. Sir, Malcolm turned to Captain Reynolds. "I want his badge. Today." The room erupted. Officers exchanged looks, some in shock, others in quiet approval. Larson's smugness was long gone, replaced by pure terror. "Wait, Commissioner, please." Larson's voice cracked. "It was a misunderstanding." Malcolm didn't blink. "No, Larson, it was a choice." Reynolds snatched the badge off Larson's chest. "You're done, Larson," Reynolds growled. "Get out." Larson staggered back, his entire career crumbling before his eyes. Every cop in the room watched in silence as he turned and walked out for the last time. And Malcolm? He just watched. The door slammed shut behind Larson. Then Malcolm turned back to the room, his presence once again commanding attention. "We're going to do better," he said, scanning the faces of the officers before him. "Starting now." The weight of his words settled in the room, and for the first time in years, true change was about to begin.